It looked like it was great on Facebook. The picture of your daughter was beautiful. Yeah, looked like it was a lot of fun. You don't travel with that flag in your car, just in case you need it?
It was a pretty dumb question, wasn't it, Senator Campion?
No, it wasn't. I wasn't doing it in that way. I was not. Knowing, hey, you never know, people, whatever. Yeah, but not a dumb question. Welcome to Senate Education. It is 11:33 a.m. on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Hopefully getting to the closing days of our work. H106 is on its way to the House. We suspended rules, so I believe it'll be on notice tomorrow and for them to decide on Thursday or Friday. S115 is on the House side. The other work for us really is S13 and school construction. And senators will recall we had Becky Wasserman take us through the changes to the school construction bill on Friday, but I've invited Representative Webb, the chair of House Education, in today to talk to us a little bit about their changes and their ideas. So with that, Representative Webb, thanks for coming in. We know it's crunch time on your side as well. Thanks for all of your partnership during the past few months. As you know, the governor has signed literacy and S16 is on his desk and other things are moving. So thanks very much for that. We would love to just get a sense. I think the really, as I recall, the big change in school construction was what I would consider, honestly, maybe tweaks around our amendment to radon. So if you want to start there, and then we can move forward. But welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yes, that's really all that we changed, and thank you for inviting me. It's definitely been a full year. We've done a lot of work. And it's been amazing to watch the work go between the two committees, and continuing. I've seen improvements as things have gone along. So I think it's been quite a successful year. As you know, H426 was a really, really important bill to the committee that we worked on. We worked on for a couple of years. Some of it came out of the work that we did on lead, where we're starting to think, do we want to just be testing one thing at a time, or should we look at a more comprehensive view? And we used to say we want to make sure we don't just put shiny faucets in crumbling buildings, that we want to actually start to look broader. And broader would include the health and safety issues that we're talking about here, including radon, including PCBs. Probably at some point we should probably talk about mold, but all of those different little issues of concern that come forward that really come as a part of what we were looking for in moving H426. I think our changes come primarily after speaking with the Department of Health, and we talked with a radon mitigator on some of the issues of concern here. And really, it was more about the speed and what it would take. When we did the lead bill, for example, we had a pretty comprehensive plan for testing and for remediation. Of course, remediation of lead in drinking water was a little bit easier to do, but we made sure that we paid for that as well. And so when we spoke with the person that does mitigation, and I did send you that testimony, we decided to make some adjustments, and we probably would have done more, but we just ran out of time, and it's the last week of the session, so this is where we are. So I'm not looking at that language right now. I'm looking at Todd's notes. So what we did is we ended up keeping radon mitigation in the bill, but we extended the date. and we extended the date to 2023. And we extended it, you had January, we moved it to June, and that's because we figured that would be 2 years of testing. Testing can only be done in the winter months. We learned that when we spoke with our radon mitigator. Can only be done in the winter months. In addition, there are probably only about 35 days of the year that it can actually happen for one person, according to our radon mitigator. So we decided it should go for 2 years, allowing them 2 full years. And quite frankly, I'm trying to remember what the other change was, and I can give you the reason. Do you remember what the change was? I'm going to have to look it up.
Have you already discussed you gave a little bit more flexibility if a school was
right?
Going
Thank you.
HVAC remediation or
yes, that's right, and we did that because the schools that are doing the HVAC work may well be mitigating radon as they go. We learned from another person that I spoke with last night, Steve Duquette, who is actually he is the president of the association. And he said, radon is addressed, and you should speak to the professional rather than go through me, but it's either by dilution, which is what the HVAC systems can do, as well as opening window, or you need a radon mitigation system, or there's something to do with subpressure. But again, he offered 3 different ways that you could be addressing radon, and it didn't make sense to be testing for radon while you're in the middle of putting your HVAC system in. The HVAC may correct it, or you may need an additional mitigation. Since we're mitigating for other reasons, just wait until that's completed.
Sounds reasonable.
So that, and we gave an extra year on that, primarily just out of request from the schools.
Any questions for Representative Webb? Okay. Senator Lyons, please.
Not a question, just I think this is a good opportunity, and I'm thank you for doing all this good work.
And I really appreciate the opportunity to have some really robust conversations going forward, because I know that we all know that we can't leave the schools with radon when we know it's there, and we can't leave the schools with PCBs when we know it's there. But we have to also make sure we're taking into account some of the unintended consequences, including the pressures that schools are under now, just in terms of opening. And since if we do, after seeing what's happened in Burlington, not every community is going to have a Macy's to go to. So I'm really looking forward to a good conversation next year, where we start to not just test, but start to consider how we're going to help our schools to address this, and our students and our faculties, and especially poor Miss Crump, who has a classroom in the basement. It's full of radon.
Okay.
And I think that's what H426 is really all about.
Right. Okay. Any final questions or comments for Representative Webb? Thanks very much, Representative. Again, we may see you again as we continue our work, but in case we don't, thank you again for your partnership with us during this first year in the biennium.
Thank you. We will have some work to do next year, that's for sure.
Right.
And looking forward to our continued collaboration together as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, we have had 426 on the calendar now for a couple of days, and we've heard from Ledge Council and Representative Webb. Just I could either we can come back later and work on this and work on it tomorrow as well if people have concerns. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to concur with the House's further proposal of amendment to H426.
So moved.
So moved by Senator Chittenden. Thank you, Senator. So Senator Chittenden has moved that the Senate Education Committee concur with the House's further proposal of amendment on H426. discussion, comments? Seeing none, Senator Perchlik, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Senator Perchlik votes yes. Senator Lyons,
Yes.
Senator Terenzini,
Yes.
Senator Hooker,
Yes.
Senator Chitton,
Aye.
and Senator Campion.
Votes yes.
600.
600. And Senator Perchlik, are you comfortable continuing your floor report on this?
Yes.
Great. I think it will likely, if the agenda changes, it'll be on notice this afternoon, which would put it on the floor first thing tomorrow morning.
Now we just report the two changes that they're making in our.
Yep. And if you haven't had a chance, Ms. Wasserman also shared a side-by-side, and there is, might be worth reviewing that as well, as there were a few other minor changes that we discussed on Friday. Anything else on that? Thanks everybody for your work. Shifting now to S13. Jim, I think you're there. There he is. Mr. Desmarais, how are you? You're muted. You're muted. You think you have to put your...
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. No problem. So thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it. And so we are looking at S13. We have been taken through now by different people the differences between the two bills. And what I'm wondering is if we could just start, and I Pro Tem recognizes that we're getting this late. We're hoping that the House can suspend the rules to get it to us a little bit sooner than Friday. But I guess I would just ask right now, while we have Mr. Desmarais, and I'll plan on scheduling Mr. Desmarais also, if it works for you, Jim, this afternoon for 30 minutes, if people have questions. In other words, just as people are making their way through this, are there questions? Are there issues that you want to raise? Are there things that are coming to you that you really feel like would push us toward a committee of conference in the next day or so? Or are the changes that have been made changes that everyone is comfortable with on S13, the pupil weighting implementation plan? And again, the Pro Tem is in a meeting with her, I think it was on Friday, and with others, recognizing that, you know, for us to take the time that we need so that we're comfortable with it. The one section that we know, and I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, that finance is dealing with is the lifting of, oh gosh, Jim, can you remind me the finance piece of that that is in S13?
I think it was that per diem had to be increased. I think that was dealt with. That was dealt with before it came over, I believe.
No, there was,
Spending?
what was it?
Was it excess spending?
Yes, thank you. Excess spending
Oh.
controls. Yes, thank you. That is being dealt within finance. And so our responsibility is the work that was dealt with in Senate Education. So I guess I'll put it out there right now. I know we've had a day or so on this, and I really have Jim here to answer any immediate questions. And then I'll also ask Jim to come back this afternoon for 30 minutes if people have an opportunity again to go through the bill, take another look. And later this afternoon, we'll just kind of weigh in and see where everybody is to see what everybody's comfort level is. So any questions for Jim right now? Senator Perchlik.
There's been no changes, right? The language is the same language as came over. We haven't talked about any changes, right?
Only
Same draft.
Yeah, same draft as before. It's a House Ways and Means amendment. On the floor of the House, there's an amendment to increase the per diem compensation because they have 8 members now instead of 4. So that has to be increased. Actually, no, that was taken out, sorry, because that appropriation's in the big bill. So the appropriations for per diem will be coming out of S13 when it comes back to you. But aside from that, that's the only change I'm aware of from what you have in front of you.
Okay.
Senator Hooker.
We did talk about the task force's ability to be flexible, and I just want to make sure that the language allows that per Dr. Colby's explanation, that there are different ways to look at, how you evaluate poverty and things like that. And so, Jim, can you just sort of reassure me that the language in the bill is going to allow that kind of discussion?
I think the language in the bill coming over from the Ways and Means actually was done in House Education. It's really the number 1 task that you have there is less broad than what you had because it seems to tie the recommendation to the report, and yours was basically looking at weightings more broadly. That said, whether that can be interpreted more broadly, I think it probably can be. It's less broad in the words, but people from your committee and on the other committees who are all talking about this, I think know what the intent is. So I think it's a question about your assurance level in having people from your committees already involved in this, talking about it and going forward. The language could be drafted more broadly to give you assurance, but if you feel comfortable with the process, that might not be necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Persick.
And Jim, on the flexibility question, if the committee, or whatever we're calling it, the task force or whatever, if they want to bring up something like how the tech centers, FTE versus pupils, is going to be impacted in the House that's struck in that language, if the committee wanted to put that in there, would they be able to? Because that's what I'm getting emails of that people that really want the bill passed is like, oh, there's the committee could do that if they want to, don't, just concur. But I guess, would that just be something that the task force would have to vote on, whether they could bring it up, or could there be a legal challenge that they say, hey, you can't talk about that. That wasn't in the charge.
I don't think so. I mean, I've never seen that before. I mean, I think it's not uncommon for task forces to wander a little bit in different directions because they realize and certain to it is relevant to what they're doing. So I don't think there's real risk here. So yes, I think they could take up CTE or other issues they feel is appropriate. They'll come back to the recommendations, nothing binding anyway. So.
Okay.
Good point. Yeah, Senator Chittenden.
I will echo the question concern Senator Hooker raised. My only pause is it seems that the House has narrowed the language, but I take what Jim has said, that language as narrower as it is to really look at this report that has inspired this discussion. There is some latitude in there, and the ultimate recommendations that will come forward are just that, recommendations. My concern, though, that I want to tease out from what Senator Hooker put forward, that if we narrow this to just look at that report, I'm concerned with the ultimate fate of adoption. If we don't empower this committee to consider how current block grants or how grant funding currently factors in, how small school grants are currently applied to schools, if that broad spectrum of how money does get to our schools today isn't factored into an adjustment to the weighting, then I from my limited exposure as this new guy in this role, I am concerned that this will not make it across the finish line next session. It needs to be adequately researched. So I don't know if we can change the language now or push back on their tightening of the language, but I liked our language and that it really looks at the whole picture of school funding to come forward back with a solution that adjusts our weighting, addressing the concerns highlighted in this report. And I'm concerned they've narrowed it because there is some advocacy for just taking the numbers that have come in this report and putting them in place tomorrow. And I just don't think that's going to happen. but that's my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. Jim, I don't know if you want to add anything. The other thing I would just, if it's at all a comfort, is since they're coming back with a draft bill, there will be, of course, opportunity. Nothing is going to be implemented without any of us playing a role. And so we can take, there are holes in any work that they did. We can certainly take testimony in that regard. Jim, do you want to add something before I move?
Well, just the examples that Senator Chittenden just gave were around categorical aid.
Yeah.
There's plenty of latitude in your language around aid. I think the only question in terms of narrowing is really, from my interpretation at least, is really only number one, which is around the weights, whether, your language is broader, the language is more tied to the report. That's the narrowing I see, at least here. And again, this depends on how much trust you have in the process, and the fact that you all be involved at some level in the process. So,
Senator Terenzini.
Senator Chittenden just plagiarized everything I was going to say, but I concur wholeheartedly with what my friend Senator Chittenden said. Thank you.
Okay. So maybe a good thing to do would be for senators, we will have Mr. Desmarais again on the calendar this afternoon, touch base with constituents, others that are writing to you. Feel free to reach out to me, Mr. Desmarais, with questions, and we'll take additional questions and work our way through things a little bit this afternoon. Senator Perschlik, you unmuted. Do you want to add something?
Well, I just wondered if it's the same about my question about the CTEs. Like, could the task force take up education funding and say, oh, we should, we're recommending you do these weights, but we're also recommending you, change to an income-based property tax, education tax system or something like that. I don't know. I guess it gets down to who's on the task force and how they vote on deciding to take up these things that aren't in the legislation. But I agree that, obviously I like the language we had, but I also want the bill to pass. So.
Sure. Senator Lyons.
Oh, I'm agreeing with that comment. If the task force we could open up Pandora's box if we have too great flexibility, having the categorical aid in there, and that flexibility, I can't imagine that anyone on the task force won't stray a little bit in their thinking. So, maybe this is the first step to a broader change to education funding overall. So getting the weights right might, this is tough.
Yeah, and this task force is going to have, it is a first step. Again, they'll be coming back with draft legislation, and that draft legislation isn't going to be passed, of course, without a lot of testimony on a lot of the things that are all raising. So it would certainly be important to them, to this group, to come to us already having some of our questions answered that I'm sure they're all listening to right now.
Can I mention one thing?
Absolutely.
Which is on the powers and duties, we've been very focused on the list, 1 through wherever, but it begins with a very broad statement, right? So it begins with powers and duties. The task force shall recommend to the General Assembly an action plan and proposed legislation to ensure that all public school students have equitable access to educational opportunities, taking into account the report and shall 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So that framing, that big task is very broad to ensure that all public school students have equitable access. So regardless of what's in the list, they have a broad omnibus power in the opening clause to go kind of and where they want to go, as I read that. So if you're concerned that they don't have the power to look at weights outside the report because it's not in the enumerated list, you can always refer back to the openings, and they've got broad powers here. They can look at lots of things.
Senator Hooker.
I think that saying, let me see what the actual language is. Taking into consideration the report, not implementing the report,
Yep.
makes it broad enough and gives me some comfort that, they will look at other options. And also the fact that it'll be coming back and we'll have an opportunity to look at that and make adjustments if necessary. So again, this is something I'd like to see pass this session. So, not looking to hold it up.
Great. So I will ask Mr. Demaray to come back in this afternoon, which gives people some more time just to look things over, touch base with folks. And Jim, if you could give us 20 minutes this afternoon, I don't know if we'll need that
Of
much
course,
time.
yep, absolutely.
Deal with additional questions. The other thing that I wanted to ask senators is I did put Secretary French on the agenda to talk about PCBs. Just so you know, Secretary French is comfortable with a date certain by which testing will happen. And I know Senator Kitchell is looking at, I think it's 2023 or 2024 at this point, working with the House to make certain, again, that there's a date certain that schools will be tested. I believe it's 2024 now. And so, which gives some more flexibility. I think I'll still have Secretary French in just to see if anybody else has any other closing questions or comments. We know that the memo is out regarding Kern-Hatton. We know that these are the closing days of the legislative session. Not looking to waste anybody's time, but if we have Jim a little bit for 20 minutes and then for the secretary for maybe 20 minutes, I think that would put us, I think that would be a worthwhile afternoon, knowing that Senate Health and Welfare needs to meet at 3:30. So we would be done. I'm guessing we would meet soon after the floor ends and just for about 40-45 minutes on those things. Okay. Terrific. Then I'll work with Jeannie, but to firm up a time. I know Democratic Caucus is meeting now. Senator Terenzini, you're more than welcome to join us. I'm happy to waive the application fee and work on a. I don't even think that we would need to even have an application fee.
Do you guys have food there?
But
Is there food?
We have food. Yes, we have great food.
come on over. Come on
Yeah,
over.
we got rhubarb crisp and all
Yeah,
kinds of good
absolutely.
things.
You see, at 7:30 this morning when the Republicans met, they didn't feed me. So
We have our eye on you. All right, great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Have a good
All
afternoon.
right, thank you.